The rain wasn't just falling. It was crashing down like the sky had something to prove. Ethan Reed could barely see 10 feet ahead of him as he steered his rusty old Ford pickup down the narrow stretch of county road, windshield wipers squealing like they were crying for help. The smell of gasoline mixed with damp earth flooded through the vents, but he didn't mind. After 16 hours hauling steel at the scrapyard, this felt oddly peaceful. Until he spotted her. A woman, soaked to the bone, standing next to a black Lexus with its hazard lights blinking like a warning signal against the storm. She wasn't waving. She wasn't moving. Just staring down at the flat tire like she'd been defeated by the world one too many times. Ethan didn't think. He just pulled over. He grabbed the old tire iron from behind his seat and stepped into the downpour, his boots instantly soaked. "You all right?" he called out over the howling wind. The woman looked up, startled. Her mascara had run in streaks down her cheeks, but her eyes still held something. Pride, maybe. "No signal," she said, "and I don't know how to change a tire." "Good thing I do," Ethan said with a tired smile, kneeling beside the car. "Pop the trunk." "No, wait," she said. "You don't have to do this. I'll call roadside." He looked at her, then up at the storm, then back at her again. "You'll be standing here for hours, and I'm already wet. Let me help. It's no big deal." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she nodded silently and popped the trunk. The tire was shredded. It took him 15 minutes of battling rusted bolts and muddy puddles to get the spare on. She tried to hold an umbrella over him, but it flipped inside out, and he laughed, shaking water from his hair. She laughed too. Soft, almost embarrassed. It was the first warmth between them. When he finished, he stood up with a grunt, wiping his dirty hands on his soaked jeans. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't have to." He shrugged. "Most people don't. That's the problem." She blinked like his words hit something deep. Then, fumbling in her purse, she pulled out her wallet. "Please let me." He held up his hand. "Don't. Just promise you'll help someone else someday." Her expression changed then, something unreadable passing over her face, almost like guilt or disbelief. "I will," she whispered. Ethan nodded, gave a tired smile, and turned back toward his truck. He didn't even ask her name. That night, Ethan sat on his broken-down couch, microwaving a can of chili in his tiny kitchen. The house smelled like wet wood and oil. The roof still leaked in the hallway. He lived alone, just him and the constant hum of regret. His job paid enough to scrape by. His phone had a cracked screen. His TV was a relic from 2002, thick-backed and blurry, but it worked. He switched it on, more out of habit than interest. And then he saw her. There she was, on the screen, not drenched, not broken, but radiant, flawless, and stepping onto the stage at some black-tie fundraiser. The camera zoomed in. The headline read, "Victoria Lane, tech philanthropist, donates $15 million to fund underprivileged schools." Ethan sat straight. No way. No freaking way. That was her. The woman with the flat tire. The one standing in the rain like the world had forgotten her. The one he'd helped without a second thought. Victoria Lane. He stared at the screen, then laughed softly, shaking his head. And that's when the phone rang. Unknown number. Ethan hesitated, then picked up. A woman's voice. Calm. Familiar. "Mr. Reed? This is Victoria Lane. I know this is unexpected, but I have something I need to say, and I'd very much like to meet again, if you'll let me." His fingers tightened around the phone. "Why?" he asked. There was silence on the other end. Then came her quiet reply. "Because you saved me, and you don't even know what from." Ethan's mind reeled, but he kept his voice even. "You tracked me down from tire change." Victoria exhaled softly. "I didn't track you. I remembered your company name on your shirt. Reed Salvage. It stuck with me. You didn't ask for anything, and you walked away like it was just another Tuesday. That's rare." Ethan leaned back, staring at the faded ceiling of his living room. "Most people don't think I'm the rare type." "I do," she said quietly. "And I want to see you. Tomorrow, if that's all right. There's something I need to explain." Ethan hesitated. This was surreal, but something in her tone, steady but not rehearsed, told him this wasn't about publicity. It wasn't about guilt either. It felt personal, raw. "All right," he said finally. "Where?" "I'll send a car. 10 a.m. You'll be safe. I promise." The line went dead. Ethan spent the night tossing on the couch, the hum of the broken fridge and the ticking leak in the hallway his only companions. His world had always been a quiet grind. Sweat, calluses, and fried eggs for dinner. But now something was shifting. When the black SUV pulled into his cracked driveway the next morning, it looked out of place, like a UFO parked outside a trailer. The driver stepped out, suited, professional. "Mr. Reed?" "Yeah." Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans. "That's me." The car smelled like leather and faint perfume. He didn't ask where they were going. He watched out the window as the town blurred past. The rusted gas stations, the pawn shop where he once sold his watch, the closed diner on 5th Street. Places that told his story without needing words. When they pulled into the gates of what looked like a private estate, Ethan's jaw tightened. The grounds were pristine. Fountains danced. Roses bloomed in organized rows like they obeyed some invisible command. She met him at the front steps. Victoria Lane. Not in a designer dress. Not in heels. Just jeans, a hoodie, and no makeup. Still beautiful, but more human. "Hi," she said. Her voice was softer in person. "You didn't have to go through all this," Ethan said, gesturing at the estate. "I didn't bring you here to impress you," she said. "I brought you here because I trust very few people, and I think you might be one of them." He raised an eyebrow. "That's a big leap for a guy who just changed a tire." "No," she said. "It's a big leap for a guy who walked away without asking for anything." They walked inside. The house was elegant, but not showy. Books lined the walls. A fireplace crackled softly. Victoria led him to a smaller sitting room, more like a library than a lounge. She poured him coffee with her own hands. No assistant in sight. "I used to come here as a kid," she said. "This was my uncle's place. He raised me after everything." Ethan didn't press, but she went on. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 12. I was in the back seat. I lived. They didn't. I blamed myself for years." He sipped the coffee. "It was perfect. I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "That's not why I called you." She stood by the window, watching the rain begin again. 3 nights ago, I was at a gala. They were praising me. Cameras flashing. People pretending to care about kids who never got a real chance. I stood on that stage, said all the right things, and inside I was drowning. I was smiling, but I couldn't breathe. Ethan watched her. Listened. "When my car broke down," she said, "I thought it was just another crack in a day full of broken things. But then you showed up. No questions. No judgment. Just kindness. And it hit me hard." Her eyes locked with his. "You reminded me of who I was before the cameras. Before the expectations. Before I built walls so high I forgot what sunlight looked like." Ethan set the coffee down. "Victoria, I'm just a scrapyard worker who had a tire iron and 10 minutes to spare." She smiled faintly. "And yet you pulled me out of something I didn't even realize I was stuck in." A beat passed between them. Quiet. Real. Then she said something that made his heart stutter. "I want to offer you a job." Ethan blinked. "Doing what?" "Running something important. Something real. Something I've been too scared to face alone." She pulled out a folder and laid it in front of him. It read, "Reed Renewal Project, Community Housing, Trades Education, and Employment Initiative." Ethan opened it slowly. His name. His signature needed on the bottom. And the budget? $8 million. He looked up, stunned. "You're giving me this?" "No," she said. "I'm trusting you with it. You're the only person I've met in years who didn't see me as a meal ticket. That's why it has to be you." Ethan stood, hands shaking. "I'm not qualified." "You are," she said, "because you never stopped being human. That's more than most people at the top can say." He stared at the folder again, then at her, and for the first time in years, he felt something rise in his chest. Hope. The wind howled outside the estate windows, but inside that quiet room, lined with books and memories, Ethan stood frozen, staring at the folder. It wasn't the money that stunned him. It was the trust. He hadn't been trusted with anything that important in years. At work, he was just another grunt. In town, people barely noticed him. His last girlfriend had left a note on the fridge that simply read, "You don't dream anymore." Victoria Lane was asking him to lead a multi-million-dollar project, to build something that mattered. His throat felt tight. "I don't even own a suit," he muttered, half to himself. Victoria gave a small smile. "That's fine. I don't trust anyone in suits anyway." He sat down again, slowly, carefully. "I need help. Real help," he said. "And you'll have it," she replied. "I've already spoken to a few people in my network who believe in the idea, but they don't want to lead it. They want someone real at the front. Someone who knows what it's like to need the kind of place we're trying to build. Ethan traced his fingers over the paper. So this Reed renewal project, that name was yours? She nodded. Thought it had a nice ring to it. He glanced at her. You're trying to change my life, Victoria. No, she said, leaning forward, her voice low. I'm trying to give you the tools to change other lives. And maybe, just maybe, rediscover your own in the process. He took the folder home. The next week blurred. There were conference calls, some awkward, some encouraging. Zoom meetings with architects and financial analysts who tried to hide their surprise when they saw his flannel shirts and unshaved face. But Victoria never wavered. Every time someone doubted him, she cut through their politeness with firm clarity. He's in charge. If you can't work with that, don't work with us. The location for the project was in the rougher part of town. 6 acres of abandoned lots, half-burnt houses, and forgotten playgrounds. Ethan stood there one morning as mist curled over broken glass and twisted swings. He saw more than ruins. He saw beginnings. That afternoon, he went back to the scrapyard. He didn't need to. Technically, he had funding now, but he wanted to say goodbye the right way. Manny, his boss, didn't even look up from his clipboard. Didn't think you'd come back, he said. Didn't think you'd care, Ethan replied. Manny sighed, then glanced at him. You were a good worker. Never late. Never lazy. Just quiet. Didn't know that was a crime. It's not, Manny said. But it sure doesn't get you noticed. Ethan extended a hand. Thanks for not firing me the day I broke the forklift. Manny smirked. That was more funny than fatal. They shook hands. It felt like closing a chapter. But success, it never comes clean. 2 weeks into construction, as bulldozers tore down the old houses, city council started getting calls. People complained about the noise, the traffic, the type of people the new project would attract. Ethan attended his first town hall meeting and was stunned at the passive-aggressive insults. I think it's commendable, what you're doing, one woman said, in pearls and too much perfume. But don't you think it's better to do these charity projects somewhere, less central? Another man added, it's going to lower property values. We work hard to live in a safe neighborhood. Ethan stood, heart pounding. I work hard too, he said. And so do the people this project is for. They deserve safe homes. Deserve second chances. You're worried about property values. I'm worried about people values. That line got printed in the paper the next day. It sparked headlines. It also sparked enemies. Emails poured in, some supportive, others hateful. Stay in your lane, scrap boy, one said. You're not a leader. You're a fixer junk. One night, someone threw a brick through the window of the temporary project office. A note was tied to it. This neighborhood isn't for charity cases. Ethan held the note in his hand, shaking with quiet anger. Victoria showed up that night, unannounced, with 2 cups of coffee. You okay? She asked. He handed her the note. This is what people think of me. No, she said calmly. That's what cowards think. The people who matter? They're watching, and they're waiting to see if you'll give up. He looked at her. Her voice. Her eyes. The steady fire behind them. I'm not giving up, he said. She handed him the coffee. Good. Because I didn't choose you to be a ghost in this story. I chose you to build it. And something shifted between them in that moment. Something unspoken, but real. Neither of them said it, but they both felt it. Weeks passed. The ground was cleared, new foundations laid. Where old houses once rotted, steel beams now stood tall. But the stress? It was real. Suppliers delayed shipments. 2 volunteers quit without notice. And one of Ethan's new hires, a guy named Colin, was caught stealing from the tool shed. Ethan confronted him outside the trailer. You needed help, Ethan said. I gave you a shot. Colin looked down, ashamed. I didn't think it'd matter. Guys like me don't get second chances that last. You just burned yours, Ethan said. But I hope you figure it out someday. Victoria watched from the porch, arms crossed. That was fair, she said after. Hard, but fair. Ethan exhaled, eyes heavy. I didn't sign up to play cop. I just wanted to build homes. You are, she replied. But building people comes with it. That night, they sat on the back porch of the estate. She handed him a sandwich. I made it, she said proudly. He laughed. It's just peanut butter. Yeah, but it's made with billionaire hands. Rare stuff. He smirked. You always like this? No, she said. I'm softer around you. It caught him off guard. He didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything. But something passed between them again, quiet, real. 2 days later, trouble came knocking. Literally. Victoria's assistant rushed into the project site. We have a problem, she said, holding a tablet. An expose is going up in 3 hours. Some anonymous source claims this entire project is a scam. Ethan's stomach dropped. Oh, we don't know yet. But the piece is brutal. Victoria stared at the screen. Her face hardened. They're trying to ruin you, she whispered. No, Ethan said. They're trying to ruin us. He paced. Pull the permits. Show the numbers. We've got nothing to hide. Victoria's voice was low. I think this goes deeper. Someone from my past. Someone who wants me to fall. Ethan looked at her. You've got enemies. More than I like to admit. The sun hadn't yet risen, but the project site was already alive with tension. The false expose had gone viral overnight. Headline screamed, $8M charity front? Who really runs the Reed Renewal Project? From scrapyard to scandal. Who is Ethan Reed? The article painted Ethan as a fraud, claimed he had no experience, accused him of funneling money to old friends from the scrapyard. Even worse, it hinted that Victoria was emotionally compromised. The site was half empty by morning. Workers didn't show. Donations paused. And Ethan? He stood in front of the framing skeleton of what was meant to be a community center, his boots buried in mud, jaw locked in disbelief. I didn't do any of this wrong, he said aloud. Victoria appeared beside him. She looked like she hadn't slept. We'll fight it. Someone's targeting you, Ethan said. This isn't just about me. Who'd go this far? She hesitated. Then she spoke a name. Quietly. Sharply. Derek Maddox. Ethan frowned. That name means nothing to me. Victoria's eyes narrowed. It means everything to me. 10 years ago, Victoria had been young, brilliant, and naive, fresh off building her first tech platform. Derek was her investor, mentor, almost family. He betrayed her, cooked the books, used her signature. When it all crashed, she took the fall to protect her employees. Derek walked away with millions and swore she'd never rise again. He thinks this project makes me vulnerable, she said. That helping others makes me weak. Ethan's voice was low. He doesn't know who you are now. Victoria glanced at him, expression unreadable. That's the thing, Ethan. Neither do I. Not really. I only started to feel like myself again when you showed up in the rain. That stunned him. You helped me out of a hole I didn't know I was in, she continued. And now I'm going to help you stand taller in the storm. The next day, they held a press conference. Ethan stepped to the mic, heart pounding. Cameras flashed. Doubt echoed in his ears. But he remembered what Victoria told him the night before. Don't defend yourself. Remind them who you are. He took a breath. My name is Ethan Reed. I've been called a lot of things, scrap boy, junk man, nobody. But I've never been a thief. I've never been a liar. I didn't build this project to get rich. I built it because I know what it's like to have nothing. He paused. To the people reading those headlines, ask the folks who stood in line last week at our job fair. Ask the kids waiting for their first library. Ask the single mom who cried when we said we'd help fix her roof. Then he turned to Victoria, standing behind him. And if this is what weakness looks like, building homes, hiring people, feeding families, then I don't want to be strong. I want to be useful. The crowd went silent. The next morning, local businesses started calling. Construction volunteers returned. A city councilwoman went on record. We believe in the Reed Renewal Project, and we believe in its leader. But the real surprise came when Victoria called him later that week, her voice cracking with emotion. You need to come here. Now. He drove fast. When he arrived, she was standing on the porch, shaking, holding a letter. An anonymous donor just wired $4 million to the project, she whispered, with one note. For the man who fixed more than a tire. They stood there in stunned silence. Ethan finally spoke. You think it was Maddox? Trying to buy silence. Victoria shook her head, tears in her eyes. No, I think someone out there believes in us. And then, for the first time, she stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him, and didn't let go. Not for comfort, not for image, but because somewhere in the middle of rainstorms, ruined tires, and public smears, they'd built something unbreakable, something real, something kind.